Hello everyone, I am B.O.B. and welcome to another Minecraft tutorial. And do I have a treat for you today? Yeah, look ahead. We have ourselves a two-way flying machine. And I know this one doesn't really look like it's flying because I got blocks underneath, so it almost looks like it's walking. Uh, but those observers, they could be mounted on top if you wanted. Typically for these things, I use them for sweepers inside of mob farms. But you know, they can be used for like a sweeper in like a sugarcane farm or a bamboo farm. I've even seen them used in sweepers for kelp farms. I mean, I suppose it could be even used as an impractical form of transportation, but um, in the event of like you wanted to use it in one of your crop farms, you might want to build it in the opposite manner with these observers underneath being on top instead. But in a mob farm, it wouldn't really matter. So, and this is kind of the easier way to do it. Uh, Now you might notice this isn't like a lot of the designs on the Bedrock edition. Well, I've noticed a few that are pretty similar, but not quite exactly like this. Um, it all works with a double piston mechanic. Let me explain. So it was right after the PlayStation converted to the Bedrock edition of the game. I was playing around with, I was actually working on a piston door, uh, and this mechanic right here kind of caught my attention. Now, if I power this piston and retract it, you know these are both sticky pistons, so you see it draw that. It pulled the block right back down with it when I turned it off. But if I power this piston and then retract it, well, it left that block sitting up there. Now this is a lot like the single tick pulse mechanic you used to get with sticky pistons in the old Legacy edition, and it still works in like the Java edition as well. Uh, but as we all know, that mechanic doesn't work in the Bedrock edition. You fire a single tick pulse into a piston, it's just gonna do exactly what it's supposed to do. That sticky piston, it doesn't kick off its block like it did in the old edition, but just by having the pistons double stacked and powering the backmost piston, or in this case the bottommost piston, we get that mechanic where it leaves that block behind. And you know, if I wanted, I could grab that block with this. But that isn't the important part. Now, of course, it worked like that in the old Java edition, or in the old Legacy edition, and the old Java edition. This mechanic here, but we didn't really need it because we had that single tick pulse mechanic. It really caught my attention in the Bedrock edition because this way we could extract blocks from a sticky piston, uh, and well, that's the mechanic we need to make a flying machine work properly. So as you can see, we have these double stacked pistons built right into the flying machine, and pay no attention to this piston underneath here. That's part of my docking station, the reset station. I'm going to teach you how to build all of this, but I got this one set up with an on-off switch so we can turn it on. You can see the machine launches. It's going to go down there to the little return station. And what happens is whenever that observer picks up a signal, it'll send these power to those sticky pistons underneath. And that basically repositions those observers so that way they're firing the proper piston in order to make the machine move. So it's basically the position of these observers that are determining which direction the flying machine is going to go. So inside this chest you'll find all the materials I used to make this build. We have 9 sticky pistons in this, and now only 4 of those are actually going into the flying machine itself. The other 5 sticky pistons are all involved in well, your reset pistons and your on and off switch basically. We're using a observer on the end of a sticky piston to turn the machine on and off. Along those lines, we're going to need 4 observers, 2 of those for the flying machines, and then 1 for each of your docking stations. You're going to need 4 slime blocks total for the machine, 4 repeaters, and those are, of course, going into your docking stations. About 20 redstone dust total. You want 2 pieces of obsidian, 1 on each end of this thing, and that's gonna make sure your machine doesn't fly away. That only took about 6 building blocks and then 1 lever for your on-off switch. Now, unlike my typical tutorials, I have not marked out an area which you would need to for this particular build because, well, it all really kind of depends on how far you want that flying machine to go, right? But just as a heads up, the docking stations themselves are about 6 blocks long, and well, the one with the power switch will be 4 blocks wide, while the one without would only be 3 blocks wide. And then the flying machine itself is 4 blocks long and 2 blocks wide and 2 blocks tall. However, I mean, if you're building a sweeper on this, I mean, you're gonna put arms on the side, so it's going to be wider than 4 blocks. In fact, in total, it can be up to 14 blocks wide. So, I mean, not as wide as we used to be able to make in the old Java edition or in the old Legacy edition, but still, that's an ample amount of space. So, I want to start off by putting in my on and off switch here. This is going to be part of the main docking station. And in order to do that, I just kind of want a floating piston 1 block above the ground. So I'm going to pillar up with another sticky piston. Now, of course, yeah, this floating piston needs to be a sticky piston. And then what you want is the redstone bomb facing the outside of the machine. So you would come to wherever that outside of the machine would be, and you would place that observer right on the end of that sticky piston. So basically, this observer's face should be pointing in the direction that you want your flying machine to fly. Now, right next to that, on the ground, and then 1 block back, you want to place 3 solid blocks in a row. So it's 1, 2, 3. And then on top of those solid blocks, you want 2 repeaters, 1, 2, in a row, both set to 4 ticks. So go ahead and put them down, click them 3 times. Now this timing is kind of important. If there's not a long enough delay, the machine could break mid-flight. It doesn't every time, but with 2 repeaters set to 4 ticks in place, it pretty much makes it 100% reliable. So yeah, you want them set up so whenever that sticky piston is extended, that observer should be feeding right into those repeaters. Now, for that sticky piston, let's go ahead and just place a lever on the top of that, or I guess anywhere on that, just so that way you can turn that piston on and off. This is basically your on and off switch for the entire machine. Now, let's take a redstone signal out of these repeaters, and we're going to feed it right back in the direction it came from on the ground here on one side, and bring that right up next to the end of those 3 blocks you have on the ground, and then you're going to have that feeding directly into a sticky piston. And then place a block of obsidian on top of that sticky piston. Now we want to come 1 block over, so you're now in line with your repeaters, and then come 1 block away from that other sticky piston with the obsidian on it. You're going to place another sticky piston, just like that. So you got 1 block space, and it's kind of, to the side as well. Now all we need to do is bring this redstone signal here all the way up to that piston we just placed out in front there. And that's the main docking station complete. Like that's the beginning of the machine. This is on. This is off. So we got our main docking station already in place. Let's go ahead and build some more here. So right next to this frontmost piston, or the frontmost sticky piston, we want an observer. We want that facing down, so you can see his little redstone bump sticking out there. And then come on top of walk over on top of this sticky piston, and 1 block away from it, have another observer facing down, just like that. So you have this little design here. Next, let's go ahead and look at this obsidian and place 2 slime blocks on that bad boy. Kind of like that. And then right to the side of those, you want 2 sticky pistons sticking right beside those slime blocks. Next, we want to kind of turn around. We want another 2 slime blocks. One going on the back of this observer and one on the face of that top sticky piston there. And then we want 2 more sticky pistons right next to those slime blocks facing in the opposite direction. So you should have this right here. And that's the flying machine already done. It's, it's just those two or those four sticky pistons, four slime blocks, two observers. That's the flying machine itself. Next, we just need to build our auto return station, which will be down that way a little bit. So when that machine gets down here, we want to be able to detect the fact that it's down here so we can send it back. And of course, we're going to do that with an observer. Now you want this observer to be right in line with those sticky pistons on the flying machine itself. You don't want it to be in line with the slime block, obviously, because then the observer is going to stick to the slime block. So, yeah, you want on this side of the machine, make sure it's aligned with those sticky pistons, and then we're going to go ahead and just pillar up so I can put that observer in place. Then right next to that observer, we want our obsidian block, and then that's going to keep that from flying off into the distance. Let's come around over to the other side of this little part here, and we're going to place a sticky piston underneath that obsidian block. And just like on the other side, we're going to come one block away and one block over, so this one should be in line with that observer, one block away from the observer to be exact. We'll go ahead and place another sticky piston on the ground right there. Next, we need to pull a repeater signal out of this observer like we did on the other side. So we're going to put our 1, 2, 3 blocks in a row just like we did over there. Double repeaters coming out of the observer, both set to 4 ticks. And then we just need to run redstone dust to our pistons. And guess what, my friends? That's it. That is our flying machine fully ready to go. If I come down here to where I started building and I go ahead and I throw that lever, the machine is off. And there it goes. Now, if you notice, whenever it took off, these pistons double fired, and that is the reason for that extra long delay there. If it wasn't a long enough delay, every now and again those pistons would reach out and they would grab those observers and just kind of rip it right off the machine, and we don't want that. And it didn't even happen every time when I was using just a single repeater, but if it happens 1 out of 10 times, that's too many times for me. Now, as I said, these are typically used as like sweepers in mob farms or certain crop farms. Of course, you'd want to be able to build arms off the side of this thing. Now, here's what you need to keep in mind. Each side of this machine is only 5 blocks. However, the machine is being pushed by the backmost piston. So that means it's pushing the piston in front of it. So technically, it's pushing 6 blocks already. This means we can add 6 more blocks to each side of this machine and still have it functional. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I could come around here to the other side and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this brings our machine to a total of 14 blocks wide. And so as you can see, if I throw the switch, the thing still works just great. Now, like I said, if you were using this as a sweeper in one of your crop farms, like sugarcane or bamboo or even kelp, you probably want to build it in the reverse, have the observers on the top, and then you'd of course have to rework your redstone a little bit. This sticky piston would be on top of this obsidian, and this sticky piston down here would be on top of this sticky piston. But then, of course, you'd have to avoid powering these pistons in the machine while you were powering your reset piston there. So that's something you'd have to be aware of, and you could get around it with like transparent blocks or whatever. This could also be built vertically, so you could use them for elevators if you choose. I personally would go for bubble tube elevators. I never had great luck with piston elevators or flying slime machine elevators in the Legacy Edition. Seemed like you'd always just kind of glitch through the block and it'd end up almost killing you. So I always kind of steered away from them. But hey, if you have any experience with like piston elevators or flying machine elevators in the Bedrock Edition, let me know. Let me know what your experiences are like as far as like reliability, because Like I said, in the old version, they weren't reliable at all, in the least. I would have done anything to avoid them. I don't know if that's any different in Bedrock or if it's the same. Um, so yeah, I mean, if you know, let me know. But that's it. That's your flying machine already in place. And so, my friends, that completes today's tutorial. And I do take requests for these tutorials, so if there are any farms or machines you'd like to see tutorials for in the Bedrock edition of Minecraft, please let me know about that in the comments below, and I will try and help you out with that. And of course, if you enjoyed this video or you found it helpful, please remember to hit that like button. And if you're interested in seeing more from me, consider hitting the subscribe button as well. I would like to thank each and every one of you for watching and wish you all a wonderful day.